This is a film about Quentin Wall. This is a story that tells about his brains and his memory, and what he often hears, the sound of twittering birds.
Oh, I know that sound.
Birds. So that is why he calls the personal instrument he developed to contact the world, a Twitter machine.
This is an example of how the so-called crisis in art criticism can be solved. But be aware, art criticism has never been a pure critical job. It has always been also a creative motor, a database in which suggestions of what could be done, or could be made, are collected. It is a world of telling the truth. A subjective truth, of course, but a truth of the emotional and intellectual mind that is confronted with a work of art. But then, what is a work of art? Most of us, my colleagues, still have the opinion that the world of works of art, that is the world of the visual arts, and our art history, has to be limited to the well-known categories of painting, sculpture etc. or to the Western world. And in doing so, categorizing the works of Asian art as the works of the other. But still there is an important idea that binds all these works and worlds and categories together, and that is moral and artistic integrity that generates eternal and temporary beauty. I do not know if the above description is a universally accepted idea. Sorry, I know better. It is not an accepted idea, it is only my opinion. The real development of art critique today, the art criticisms 2.0, is influenced by the art business. Excuse me, the art business? Yes, of course, the new art critic, the art critic of the new times, is not the art critic I have been before, in the last century. Then, the art critic, the ideal art critic, my ideal art critic, I myself, behaved as a kind of monk, contemplating in his own self-reflective fantasy, the products of the others, the real other, the artist. No, of course not, but yes, somewhere deep in his mind I was really a monk, although in real life I had to make many concessions in the world. But nowadays, yes, many of my colleagues have given up all the moral restrictions, and have become the entertainers, the servants of the capital, the spokesman of the London-based British art, the spokesman of Damien Hirst and his mafioso collectors. And if they are not, they are the colleagues of the spokesman of the sentiment in the arts, of the primitive educational explication, attitude and the style of the cynical Alain de Botton. Yes, while fighting the ideas of the Damien Hirst and the Alain de Bottons, it is good to cherish a nostalgic feeling for the times when we had that kind of art education in the style of Robert Hughes, with his cosmopolitan skeptical, kind of childish scandalized when the new art was too difficult for him. But I have one problem related to Robert Hughes. Although he was a painter himself, he never dared to let his own work be part of his critical exercises. In his own professional art world, he was not recognized as a real artist, not good enough, so in his mind he separated these two worlds, his own work and the work of the others. I think that's wrong. To separate your creative work and your critical work is not necessary. On the contrary, if you do it well, your own creative work can even make your critical work better. One way of changing our preconcept ideas is by using the manner of serendipity to forget the old ways and make way for unexpected turns in your concept of the story of art that we want to tell. The search for a pleasant surprise can be integrated in our search for a new concept of art, art criticism and art history. It is not a revolutionary path, in the first sight, but when better understanding, it can be useful for many of us revolutionary way of working, studying and enjoying. That is, the old standard seems slowly disappearing, slowly give way or a new feeling. Perhaps, not so new for many of us, but the structural innovative trend can be interesting. The serendipity in our art historical and art critical search leads the routine of the exploration, the incidental sideways that show us new insights. A little bit like examining an old painting and finding a still older painting behind our beloved one. Wikipedia informs us about the real quality of serendipity, how Horace Walpole explained it, with the Persina fairy tale, the three princesses of serendipity, always making discoveries, by accident and sagacity, of things which they were not in quest of. This seems like an old habit in art history, discover things which you are not searching for, and the surprises of the newly discovered objects and information can be gratifying. But for me, nowadays, the most important category of the visual arts, but one that has never been really integrated, is the film, the cinematography. I will give you some example of how to avoid all the preconceptions about art, as a conceptual idea, but also as a daily experience. I will show you some fragments of a movie we made, called Quentin, a boy with a memory as a karaoke movie machine. This is a boy who has seen many movies, and his gift is that he can memorize these movies fluently. That is, he remembers me of my old university professor who emphasized that only students with a perfect memory can be good art historians and art critics. I didn't have a perfect memory, but I became an art critic. Now, in Quentin, the boy with the memory as a karaoke movie machine, I can project all my ideas, my preconceptions and my dreams of the business of being an art critic. It is all here visualized. Here, in working on this movie, I realized that the gift of a perfect memory can also be a great burden. For Quentin, all his adventures, all his explorations, are being influenced by his living, vivid memory. Influenced in a nice way, but also influenced in a very bad manner. With his memory, the serendipity can be both a blessing or a curse. For me, on the contrary, it was a good way to let my figure, this Quentin, to personalize the duty of the art critic. In this errant way of working, taking one step and a totally antagonistic other step, my hero is exploring the world of cinema. But there is a difference. I never could learn by heart the total collection of artworks that make the database that's called the Western art. But Quentin has loaded his film data as a gift of God in his karaoke movie memory. So while I slowly learned by heart the necessary minimal collection of world-famous paintings, Quentin just has to fight against the overload on information in his mind. So, this Quentin is retracking the course I once took in learning and seeing my collection of old paintings as my base for my professional activity as an art critic. Yes, it was in Amsterdam and Venice that Quentin lives his adventurous life, the two cities of my professional education. Two cities on the water, two cities that are organized as labyrinthine worlds. And in this world, this European world, Quentin, an Argentine student in real life, is being accompanied by Sylvie, in real life a Thai film student. But instead, as I myself who was educated with a static set of values, the so-called Western art canon, Quentin and Sylvie are adventurous in their learning the world of art and film. So, while I was educated in my own Western art critical concepts, in the well-known canon of art, they are confronted in a serendipity way in front of the different views of what nowadays is called the other. They do not take for granted the old concepts of art, and in a particular way, they also teach me of their new discoveries. So, in a very short time, I become not only confronted with the other, I am really practiced and metamorphosed in the other, by the teachings of Sylvie and Quentin. For me, especially, it was an eye-opener when Sylvie learned us about the living presence of the forefathers, and told us other ghosts in the daily reality. The Thai world is full of presences of the other that are also oneself. When I realized that these ghosts also populated the labyrinth structures of Amsterdam and Venice, I realized that I had come into a new spiritual and real world. This seems a broader view on the labyrinth as I knew from my student time. And yes, their serendipity activity, if this not searching but still finding activity, brought me slowly near the concept of the labyrinth. And yes, it is their freedom of selection of the different courses that gives us impulse to make unexpected choices. We follow a road to the left, then take a way down right, or we follow just a direct path to a goal far in the distance. And we glue one and another subject that are unfamiliar to each other in a single object. There is of course the danger of doing wrong connections that never will be connected. It is a kind of shortcutting, and although even shortcuts can be fruitful, it is better to do a goof job in finding connections that are fruitful to each other. So, Quentin and Sylvie, in their walks through these cities, have no premeditated goal but use a serendipity search. Of course, I realized that the forms of the old labyrinthine world can be integrated in the forms of the digital prints. The computer science, so they say, started with the idea of the English mathematician Turing, who realized that only a long string of paper in a simple machine can be enough to solve every problem you can imagine. There the computer started, and there we are now, when we try to give an answer to all our questions and problems. The story of this all can be compressed in what is the object of our decade: the smartphone. Steve Jobs introduced it to Quentin, Samsung learned Sylvie about the Galaxy. And of course, that is the word of our contemporary labyrinth: the Galaxy. And here comes in the reality of the smartphone as an artistic, serendipity-oriented labyrinthine machine. And of course, in Korea, which word can be better used to describe the exploration of this modern research? The use of the smartphone Galaxy from the firm Samsung as our guide. A central question is, how to bind the digital Samsung serendipity, that is, the cultural phenomenon, to the world of our analogy culture? How to bind the analog old threats to the new digital's connections? And of course, when Quentin asks himself these essential questions, how can we compare the qualities of the smartphones to the discoveries of the art and cinematographic avant-garde? Is there a way to make the smartphone avant-garde? Or to make the avant-garde art something like a smart mechanism? These are the questions I asked myself, and yes, of course, Quentin and Sylvie also. And it is a more than aesthetical statement, it is really an avant-garde statement to declare that the world of the modern smartphone can be part of the world of the modern art and cinematography. Yes, we, Quentin, Sylvie and I, we say to the connoisseur and the conventional and even the avant-garde art critic, Colleagues, the small glass of the Samsung Galaxy can be compared with the grand glass of Marcel Duchamp. The labyrinth of this galaxy combines the long-distance macro world with the micro world of the electronics. This meeting between two worlds, perhaps in the art world, seem a new, still to discover possibility. And it is, of course. But do we realize that this meeting already has been prepared? In literature and in real life, it is the meeting of the world of the writer Jorge Luis Borges and the inventor of the smartphone, Steve Jobs. So, then it is not really a strange phenomenon to introduce the Samsung Galaxy to the art world. I am convinced these worlds can be combined, the world of the arts with the world of the mobiles. And so are Quentin and Sylvie. A friend of mine explained me what this movie, the Quentin movie, really is. You didn't make a real movie, not even a documentary, it is just an art criticism. How to explain a movie as an art critical experiment? I must say before, I always believed that the critical work, this analytical activity, can always be combined with the creative activity. In Quentin we are confronted with a mixture of these two activities. That is, it takes, both for the maker, as for the public, an extra dimension in understanding the work, and a new way of making an, use the word, consuming art. It makes the movie an experiment in art criticism. I could not have suspected before, but it really does. Not as usual critical view on the works of other artists, but both a critical and creative view on my own works. And of course, it shows the climate of art criticism 2.0, but with an own signature in a moral sense. It is morally an old-fashioned work, compact and no concessions to the business aspiration of the new criticism. But in all other aspects it shows us the qualities of a new, fresh development of the atmosphere. Slowly, the digital mechanism will take over the functions of our organs, our nerves, our bodily functions. And slowly we will get connection with the wonders of the digital world. Our hearts will be part of the structure of the microcosmos of digital world. But what are the consequences of this passage to a new world? Quentin is a movie, but also a documentary, and, yes, an art critic. It is an essay about the possibilities of a new way of observing art, a new way of writing and talking about art, another way of art criticism.
Coup de téléphone urgent à donner à Alain Delon, Dalida.
C'est étrange. Je ne sais pas ce qui m'arrive ce soir. Je te regarde comme pour la première fois.
Encore des mots, toujours des mots, les mêmes mots.
Je ne sais plus comment te dire.
Rien que des mots.
Mais tu es cette belle histoire d'amour que je ne cesserai jamais de lire.
Des mots faciles, des mots fragiles, c'était trop beau.
Tu es d'hier et de demain.
Bien trop beau.
De toujours, ma seule vérité.
Mais c'est fini, le temps des rêves. Les souvenirs se fanent aussi quand on les oublie.
Tu es comme le vent qui fait chanter les violons et emporte au loin le parfum des roses.
Caramel, bonbon et chocolat.
Par moments, je ne te comprends pas.
Merci pas pour moi, mais tu peux bien les offrir à une autre qui aime le vent et le parfum des roses. Moi, les mots tendres enrobés de douceur se posent sur ma bouche, mais jamais sur mon cœur.
Une parole encore.
Parole, parole, parole.
Écoute-moi,
Parole, parole, parole.
je t'en prie.
Parole, parole, parole.
Je te jure.
Parole, 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 parole. Parole, encore des paroles que tu sais, Momo.
te parler comme la première fois.
Encore des mots, toujours des mots, les mêmes mots.
Comme j'aimerais que tu me comprennes,
Rien que des mots.
que tu m'écoutes au moins une fois.
Des mots magiques, des mots tactiques qui sonnent faux.
Tu es mon rêve défendu,
Oui, tellement faux.
mon seul tourment et mon unique espérance.
Rien ne t'arrête quand tu commences. Si tu savais comme j'ai envie d'un peu de silence.
Tu es pour moi la seule musique qui fait danser les étoiles sur les dunes.
Caramel, bonbon et chocolat.
Si tu n'existais pas déjà, je t'inventerais.
Merci pas pour moi, mais tu peux bien les offrir à une autre qui aime les étoiles sur les dunes. Moi, les mots tendres enrobés de douceur se posent sur ma bouche, mais jamais sur mon cœur.
Encore un mot, juste une parole.
Parole, parole, parole.
Écoute-moi,
Parole, parole, parole.
je t'en prie,
Parole, parole, parole.
je te jure.
Parole, 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 parole. Parole, encore des paroles. Que tu sais mon nom.
Que tu es belle,
Parole, parole, parole.
que tu es belle,
Parole, parole, parole.
que tu es belle,
Parole, parole, parole.
que tu es belle.
Parole, 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 encore des paroles, que tu sais mon mot.
Bravo Dalida. Bravo Dali. Et merci de savoir si bien parler aux hommes. Mesdemoiselles, je vous en prie.